Welcome to 75 Stories, a podcast created to commemorate the 75th anniversary of Normandale Lutheran Church in Edina, Minnesota.
My name is Ruth Oliphant. My husband and I came to Normandale in 1978. I noticed the children's choir was made up of girls primarily. There were just two boys in a huge children's choir. And I had a boys' choir in Wilmer, Minnesota, so my interest was there. Our son was at the right age for this boys' choir. So the church allowed me to try a boys' choir from the fall till January to see if it would fly. The music staff visited churches in the Minneapolis area and said, no one has a boys' choir. Why did we choose to come to Normandale? My husband and I visited several Lutheran churches, and the one thing that really drew us here was the fact there was a large youth choir, and our children were at that age that they would be going into that choir. My husband also had worked with Pastor Manfred, who was the pastor here. So those two reasons were primarily why we came here. Some of my greatest challenges in coming to Normandale and organizing children's choirs was the fact children are so busy nowadays, sports especially, not only for boys, but girls also. So I called every child, boy and girl, from ages kindergarten through 6th grade. Well, actually 7th grade is what we started with, and invited them to choir. And that phone call made a big difference. Moms would say, well, my child would not be interested. She'd say that on the phone. And I'd say, can I talk to your child? And then the child came to choir. So I was a bit of a seller, I guess, on our program. And my main emphasis was to get boys to sing. I loved working with boys, and the girls came more naturally. The little ones came, well, the parents made the judgment there, so it was in the parents' hand. But I was especially interested in getting the boys to come to sing. So that was very rewarding to me to get about 40 boys that first year. Besides the sports, I found that children are so busy in so many different activities, and they had to make choices. And I just had to sell them on the fact they could help preach the sermon on Sunday through their music. So it was exciting to win their trust and to get them to come to choir. One of the greatest joys was the fact I would always start with a prayer, and then with the boys and girls choirs, from 3rd grade to 6th, or at one point it was 4th through 7th, I would say, who would like to pray today? And children would offer their prayers. I was very touched by some of their prayers. One 7th grade boy prayed for his friend's mother who had cancer. Another child prayed for a sick goldfish. So there were, extremes. But I was just very impressed with how the children had the courage to pray in front of friends. One instance was a boy. We elected officers in Boys and Girls Choir because that just gave them a little pride. And one of the boys who had been elected president one day came, and he said, Mrs. Oliphant, our family was going to such and such a place, but I figured as president, I better be at choir. So he stayed back when his family went to wherever they were headed. And I thought that was really impressive, that he put that much feeling into what he was elected to do. Just having children who came who didn't know how to use their voices, and I would do a lot of work getting them up to the high register because our choirs were for soprano voices. And especially with some of the boys, I had one family with adopted boys from Africa. And it seemed like their voices matured earlier. And I had to be careful to encourage them. Some could get their voices up. I would say, flip your voice up. And I would do a yoo and get them to flip their voices up. And was pretty successful with that. But I remember one boy, actually a neighbor of ours, who his voice had really changed. And he just couldn't, but he was still welcome and was, well, I actually had perfect attendance for 4 years. So I just was having to be an encourager. Well, I might say that as a vocal person, God did not give me a beautiful voice, but I had a professor at Gustavus who was able to stretch my voice into the high range. And so I felt comfortable. I felt like I had a voice that I wanted the children to imitate, and they did. And I would say once in a while I was able to flip a voice from low to high, and that gave me a lot of satisfaction. A child that probably was, let's say, quote, a droner, but was able, and the joy on that child's face, to know that he or she was using his or her voice correctly. But I did have a boy in a wheelchair one year, and he was the kind of boy who would come in, and the first thing he'd say, "Mrs. Oliphant, can I get you a drink of water?" He'd come down the hallway, spilling half of the water. I took the boys' choir once to Augustana Home, and after the program, a lady came to me and said, "Oh, the choir was so good, but that one little boy kind of spoiled it because he didn't carry a tune." And to me, Michael was probably more of a mission than any of the other children, because he was there and he was giving it his all. So that more or less offended me, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but something to the effect of what he gives is probably more than any of the other children by being here and giving his all. So I'll never forget that. And I believed that every child had a purpose and was very much of an asset to our choir. Well, my hopes for Normandale with a new pastor coming is that music will be a strong part of his ministry, that children will be a strong part of his ministry, and that they will be encouraged by, well, for instance, Pastor Paul played drums with us, and he really encouraged the children, and he also came to choir camp with us. And I just love the memory of seeing Pastor Paul running with the kids when they were playing games outside. So that's my hope with a new pastor, that children's music will be a strong part of his ministry.
We are so glad you joined us today here at 75 Stories. If you'd like to share your own story, please contact Christy Shepard at kshepard@normluth.org. Join us next week for another story, and share this podcast with your friends and family. We are all part of the Normandale community.